power outage was reported after, counting had commenced.
Announcement of
They have also
results. National Assembly from Ministers Conference Hall number 1. Results are as follows. Tommy NRPUP 26 votes. Tommy NRPUP 26 votes. Guerrera Masuka Independent 108 votes. Guerrera Masuka Independent 108 votes. Makai of UPND 225 votes. Makai of UPND 225 votes. 9 ballot papers have been rejected as invalid, and that a total of 368 votes were cast.
Seeing this come to an end, but also just getting back to some of the things that did happen yesterday. And I like that they had highlighted matters to do with just lighting and how that can also affect an election. And leading up to this, I think, if we remember, if my memory serves me right, I think the ECZ spoke into how they were preparing, how they were inspecting polling stations and so on. But if the inspections were going on, and obviously a report must have been concluded, why were these things, fixed? And what's funny to me about this light bulb issue is that, again, based on the experience I had yesterday in the polling booth, it was dark. It was fairly dark. It wasn't well lit, and that again, I could hear murmurs from people as to why it was so dark in there and so on. Another interesting issue is where persons with disabilities is concerned. They make up 0.2%. 0.23% to be precise, of an 8.7 million, plus voter register. That is so low. Only 20,000 plus being considered as polling stations were being picked. And sometimes I think what also speaks into voter, or what could lead into low voter turnout is an area conducive for somebody, easily accessible
yeah.
for somebody to be able to come out and vote, to be able to come out and register, first of all, to vote. If they have lost their NRCs, we've seen how cumbersome also that replacing process can be. We saw just the 2 days, before
actually
the election,
day, Malama.
people a day before were showing up in the numbers. Even they were surprised at the numbers that they were seeing. They say, I think I remember you spoke to one of the representatives there, and he spoke.
The deputy registrar, yes.
Registrar, yeah. And he said, on average, in the week, they'll be looking at 150 people in a day. Come the night before voting day, they're looking at 500, 600 people.
Yeah.
It's these little things that, sometimes could also deter people because they're thinking, pakanitroke mulaini. na vile kanaenda kunyumba
line ni tali
ni
maningi.
tali maningi after all mstatia replace NRC, but you need it to be able to vote.
Yes.
You know, again, these are the little things that we continue to see. Limulunga also, Limulanga Community School, I think it was. I was shocked that by 1340 again, nobody also turned out to vote. And I'm thinking, what is happening here? There are
Where are the
so
people?
many factors that lead into low voter turnout.
Indeed, Malama, and I think the encouragement from the Electoral Commission of Zambia and other stakeholders has been let people go out there in numbers and vote. This is, you know, a democratic right. You need to vote for your preferred candidate. You need to vote for someone who you think is going to bring, you know, development in your community. This is, I think, the main reason why even people vote, Malama, is to see that their lives, you know, become better, to see that the compounds where they come from are better, are developed. Talk of, you know, roads, issues to do with, you know, water and sanitation, even internet for, you know, some communities in, you know, far areas still remains, you know, a source of, you know, a concern. And if they don't exercise, you know, this right to vote, are they going to see, you know, the development that they aspire, you know, to see? I don't think so. And that's the reason why the Electoral Commission of Zambia, governance experts, stakeholders have been encouraging people to go out there and vote. But like, you know, we have been saying there are quite a number of, you know, factors that will, you know, make someone not to vote. Just an incident that we shared, a very sad development of a young, you know, a lady. She could not be the only one who was not allowed by her boss to exercise her right to vote. They should also be to have people that are capable to bring the change that you want to see. It is, you know, the second day of, you know, since the voting day, Malama, yesterday, people turned out
People
in
did
numbers.
turn out in numbers. One thing I think people have been also able to speak into is I think most part the peace. Yes, we've seen pockets of violence and disturbance here and there, but I think for the most part of it, you know, it's been that voting day concluded more peace. At least it was mostly peaceful. Anyway, we're stepping into day two. Still, again, things seem to be more calm equally. And getting just back to the statement that the Zikozatu spoke into, and from their recommendations, even just to the Zambia police, they wrote here that the Zambia Police Service and other security actors to maintain public order in a professional, impartial, and proportionate manner, protect voters, the electoral officials, monitors, and other stakeholders, and promptly investigate reported incidents of violence, intimidation, and electoral interference. So that is their core, you know, and this is just to ensure that where there's violence reported, the police should be quick to react to that or to act on that. Where there's matters of intimidation, equally, again, they should be able to act in that. Where counting is still ongoing and results are still pouring in, any interference there, the police should be able to move in quickly and act. But overall, I think we've seen most stakeholders still applaud the police for being able to, you know, keep things at calm, and also just the Zambian people, as we're seeing that most areas at least have been peaceful.
It's a very sensitive period at the moment, one that, you know, need, I think, collective responsibility, Malama. People should be able to exercise, you know, utmost patience. As the results, you know, will be announced by the Electoral Commission of Zambia. And you've just also reminded me, Malama, of and this is something that we've already discussed, of how people still want, you know, to use, you know, social media to spread misinformation or disinformation pertaining to this, you know, election, something that has been discouraged by, you know, the Electoral Commission of Zambia and other, you know, stakeholders. People need to wait for verified results, verified results that will be, coming your way. Our viewers who are watching us, live on this platform, the Zambian Voice.
Yeah.
Diamond TV continues to, engage journalists across, the country, or correspondents across the country that are giving us, verified results as announced at the totaling, center. And it can only be here, Malama, that people will be able to know who has won and who has, or lost at all, level. You're talking about, local government and presidential level. So yes, this is an important exercise. Yes, you want the person you voted for to win, but it cannot be your way.
And just on that, the ECZ also have guided. I believe even Zambia Police have guided. I think it was yesterday or the day before that we also hosted Mr. Godfrey Chilabi, and he spoke into one thing that people have been doing, and which is filming themselves in the voting booths and posting how they voted on social media. That is an illegal action. You cannot do that. So there are people that risk, putting themselves up for apprehension based on just those factors. You have to respect, the next person and not just infringe your voting opinions on other people. It's about having a respectful dialogue and so on. But yes, there's this trend now that we are seeing of people posting on social media how they voted and so on. And we've seen guidance that that is a no-no through the electoral process.
Just a statement, Malama, are coming from, the Electoral Commission of Zambia, even as, waits for an update from them regarding, the process thus far. There's a statement here that has been released by the chairperson of the Electoral Commission of Zambia in Mwangala Zalomis, and she says it actually relates to the suspension of counting and announcement of election results. And she is saying here that the Electoral Commission of Zambia has noted with concern reports of violence during the counting and announcement of results in some districts. The violence is targeted at post staff and in some instances has resulted in the theft of marked ballot papers in ballot boxes. In view of the security situation and continued threats of violence, the Commission has with immediate effect suspended the counting and announcement of results throughout the country. In accordance with Section 67(3) of the Electoral Process Act number 35 of 2016, the Commission will review the suspension within 24 hours. So we are already seeing a delay in us, getting verified results from the Electoral Commission of Zambia. I mean, some, people have decided to steal,
I saw a video on TikTok this morning, and I'd even shared it in the group to say, team, is this accurate? Because it was of exactly just that. It was ballot boxes in a corner of some area, ballot sheets in some area that had just been dumped. And the lady in the video, you could hear her saying, people, I can't believe that, and she's speaking in Bemba, so forgive me if I don't translate exactly in Bemba, but she was basically what she was saying was that people are now even stealing ballot boxes. That seals what I saw. And that is very unfortunate that people would, go to the length of stealing ballot boxes. Why would you want to disrupt an election? This could also potentially see this election maybe go a different direction, because if you're going to steal, if those ballots are going to be stolen, were they stolen before or after they were recorded, and so on? What does that mean, for that particular polling station or constituency and so on? so many things could begin to come in here, because we have to ensure that everybody's civil right is respected and is protected and so on. And this is why people have been speaking to protecting the vote. And when that happens, what could be the possible outcome?
Also, I think this is where law enforcement agencies come in. The police, Malama. I think they need to thoroughly investigate these ugly incidents that we are just hearing from the Electoral Commission of Zambia. This is tantamount to an electoral offense, and any person who is arrested, found guilty, could actually be convicted. I think the police will need to be able to tell us through their investigations who are these people, have they been arrested. It's so, I think, concerning and disappointing, Malama, to see that people can actually go at such length in as far as the electoral process is concerned. We were just talking about accepting whatever outcome that may be it at mayoral, council, and presidential level. It's a competition. It's a game of numbers.
Absolutely.
At the end of it all, people turned out to vote for their preferred candidates, and just a person decides to steal the ballots of the votes that were cast. I think it's something that is disappointing, and we can only hope that the Electoral Commission of Zambia, and we're speaking here as also stakeholders. I know the members of public also are waiting for what will happen next, because the Electoral Commission of Zambia is saying here that they have since suspended the counting of the votes, and they will
Look
announce
forward also
within
just to
14,
the fact
yeah.
we're at the Totalings, at the National Totaling Center. We are going to be speaking also a little later with Mr. Maurice Nyambe for TIZ. I can't wait to hear also what they've been able to observe, and speaking into this statement coming from the Electoral Commission of Zambia. We've got a number of observers also that are in the main auditorium. I think it would be good to be able just to catch up also with them and see what their sentiments or what their reactions are to this. It's a very unfortunate situation, but again, where votes have been stolen, what next? What happens? Do we see a election within that particular area? Because those votes have been stolen. Therefore, it kind of invalidates the process that has happened out of a particular polling station or constituency.
Indeed, Malama, we'll be going on a short break, and after the break, we will interact with the Executive Director of Transparency International Zambia, Mr. Maurice Nyambe. We do believe that there are, a number of, observers that have been deployed across the country by Transparency International Zambia. And like you have said, it also be good to get a reaction on what has been shared by the Electoral Commission of Zambia chairperson, Madam Wangala Zalomes.
running.
And in the
We'll run you through the entire vote count right here at the National Results Center.
This is more than election coverage. This is Zambia's decision. From the first ballot cast to the final results declared, this will be the biggest election coverage ever, right here on Diamond Media.